I'm Dr. Roeloff Botha. I teach economics part-time at Gibbs. I'm an economic consultant at large, and you are watching Risk Africa TV.
Unfortunately, Statistics South Africa is a disruptor. And the reason I say that is simply because the manner in which they report on GDP data is outdated. They use a methodology which has been discredited a long time ago by the OECD. They use quarter-on-quarter GDP data in real terms, and then they annualize that. And now everybody thinks we are in a recession when we are not in a recession. If you look at the year-on-year basis, which is the recommended way to report on national accounts variables. In other words, second quarter this year compared to the second quarter last year, adjusted for inflation, we grew annualized at 0.6%. First quarter, 1.5%. And I think it's terribly important that people understand that we are not in a recession. Having said that, the economy is not growing at great shakes. This is a hangover from the Zupta era, when this country went through 9 years of unbelievably and declining levels of public administration, including, of course, a lot of corruption and theft and such, which is coming out in this Commission of Inquiry now. But the good news is that we are not in a recession. Land expropriation without comprehension, as I prefer to call it, is just an incredibly stupid idea, because it is also called nationalization of land, and wherever it has been implemented, it has failed dismally in terms of satisfying society's quest for higher welfare. As a matter of fact, in every country where it has been implemented, your capital formation, GDP ratios have declined dramatically, and I'm busy with a study right now to determine that average decline in a number of countries, and feeding that into an econometric model of the South African economy to determine what would happen to our GDP and our fiscal revenues if we do implement this. So this is not an ideological study, this is a clinical input-output table analysis study, and I can tell you we've done a test run, and if we do this, this country's bonds become junk overnight, and then we are in deep trouble. Right now, we are on the edge of a precipice, but we must just not move forward now. Doctor? Yes, certainly. We must remember that Mr. Ramaphosa is an interim president. He has to win an election next year to be an elected president. What we do know about his policies, we can find in his election manifesto at the ANC elective conference last year. Plus, you could see a little bit of that in the budget, in the February budget, which, although it was delivered by Mr. Gigaba, was actually a Ramaphosa budget, which satisfied Moody's, the ratings agency, and maintained our investor grade status. What has happened in the interim, of course, is there's this lagged effect from the policy uncertainty during the latter part of the Zuma era, etc., which is now coming back to bite us in terms of lower growth. But we should see an uptick towards the second half of this year, and after next year's election, Mr. Ramaphosa, if he gets a mandate, and I have no doubt he will get a large enough mandate to really clean up and deliver on his promises, ridding this country of corruption, infusing local authorities that are dysfunctional with the appropriate skills, getting service delivery up to scratch, and in the process broadening the tax base. So I'm convinced that from the second half of next year into 2020, we are going to start flying again, and that's good news for the insurance industry. Well, essentially, if you look at disposable income of South Africans in per capita terms, that's your bottom line. If people have less money, then your insurance industry, short and long term, will obviously suffer. And they're not doing greatly right now because it's growing at a very meager pace, your disposable income per capita. But it is growing, and it will start growing at a more rapid pace. So for the next, I would say, 6 to 9 months, it's a period of consolidation, keeping your clients calm, not getting them to do rash things like immigration and selling off a lot of assets just be calm until after the election. I can almost guarantee you that this economy will grow at a faster rate next year and a much faster rate in 2020. This is not going to be a great year. It's a year of consolidation.
Going forward and making gains going forward?
Well, the insurance sector obviously sells products and services to the agricultural sector, short and long term. It's a major source of revenue. So I would suggest that in future that one works a little bit closer with your agricultural organizations, regionally and nationally, to make sure that their hands are stronger to be able to do the type of research that can convince government that this sector is strategically important. In Asia, in Western Europe, you have huge subsidies for farmers because those governments realize how crucially important food security is to the stability of their countries. We do not have in South Africa any real form of protection for agriculture. That needs to change, and the insurance sector as such can really assist here in doing the type of research required to lobby for some assistance and to make 100% sure that people in South Africa are not only dissatisfied, perhaps from time to time about weak service delivery, but that their stomachs are not also empty, because then you've got big problems.